So today, why not we explore our antiquity? What is the antiquity of the Indian civilization, and how the various facts and various evidences that are the basis to provide the chronological continuity of the Indian civilization. So let us explore my entire research is based on the literary evidences and the archaeoastronomical evidences available in various our Sanskrit text and from Vedas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and all of this. Because beyond Buddha, we don't have we don't have any epigraphic evidences still. But there are enough literature is available because our rishis and our learned scholars of the ancient period, they have documented, they were almost various astronomical observations they have recorded. Based on that, we can explore as well as we can corroborate with the various other scientific evidences. So today, before what is actually the traditional timeline, because we had our own chronological history before the colonial era, because Itihasa was part of our Gurukula education, and our the chronological sense that says that is the it begins from the Vedas, the Vedic period, early Vedic period to, we can say, the Rigveda period, that is the Vedic period, entire that early, middle, or the later Vedic period. Then it is the post-Vedic period, when the Vedas were compiled, and later Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Shrota Sutras, and various other texts have been compiled, even Upanishads. All those texts belong to the post-Vedic period. Then we have the Ramayana era. Valmiki, today Valmiki Jayanti is also being celebrated. So the Ramayana, Valmiki was considered as the Adi Kavi, because from this Ramayana, or just 1,000 years before Ramayana era, the Laukik Sanskrit was fully evolved. The first historical of Kavya, historical poetry presented in Laukik Sanskrit. This was the reason why Valmiki was named as Adi Kavi. Then yes, Mahabharata era, as per our tradition, 5,200 years, 3,200 BC, 3,100 BC, in between 32nd century BC was the Mahabharata. So this was our traditional chronological history. But yes, what is the timeline? Whether it goes to lakhs and crores of years, or it is only few thousands of years, what is the real chronology? We have to explore. So then, okay, the Kali Yuga, this is the one epoch we were using from 2nd century BC onwards. Numerous inscriptional evidence is available, and the many Sanskrit texts and our entire tradition, even during puja and yajnas, we generally refer to the Kali Yuga Samvat. This Kali Yuga Samvat commenced in 3101 BC. There is enormous evidence is available to establish the epoch of this Samvat. So these are the timelines actually we followed traditionally. But last 200 years of colonial historical research, they just rejected entire our tradition, and they said that okay, up to Buddha you have the chronology. Beyond Buddha, everything from Vedas to Ramayana, Mahabharata, everything has been they have dated within 1,000 years. So that's why 1500 to 500 BC, this is the chronology you have. Thereafter, you are just Buddha onwards. So as on today, as per the historical or the history textbooks written by the colonial historians or the later leftist historians, or what is being taught in universities and colleges, they simply say that the beyond Buddha, you have no chronology in any. So they literally refer it to the pre-Buddha period as the prehistoric period. I don't know what archaeologist and the modern historian want to say. They just refer it to pre because they can't date any event. So that's why they call it prehistory. It means we generally claim that Bharat was the Vishwa Guru, but we don't have any history going beyond 500 BC as on today. That is the tragedy with the most ancient civilization of the world. We were actually the descendant of such a great civilization that was continuous since, I can say, from the end of the Ice Age and others. How the chronology works out, we will proceed for examining the evidences. So, what is actually traditional chronology? Beyond Mahabharata, Indians actually counted the elapsed, whatever the time has been elapsed, they counted in terms of yugas. How many yugas have been elapsed? What is yuga? Yuga does not mean that the dinosaur age or uske baad dusron ka, the way the geography and the modern scientists work out some kind of a celestial yuga. Yuga was actually a calendar. Indians followed from Rigvedic era onwards. We have to ensure that we have developed very a scientific calendar in the beginning of the early Vedic period itself. When we trace Indian civilization starts because a civilization can evolve only when you have a regular rains. So what you have to think about Indian civilization, because Vedic period, during the Vedic period, agrarian society was well evolved. So it means the rains were regular. So it means southwest monsoon in India became regular. So then we have to explore when southwest monsoons became regular in India. So that the fact is almost somewhere 16,000 BC, almost 18,000 years before, the southwest monsoon became regular in India. So this is the one scientific evidence, because civilization can begin only when with the agrarian society. So and for that you need the regular monsoons, regular rainy seasons to ensure that yes, well established agrarian civilization has commenced. So that for India, we should not mix up with that Holocene dating by the Europeans, because the Holocene for the Europe may be some other, but for the Indian continent, for us, we are very close to the equator. So for us, the regular southwest monsoons are the first point. From there onwards only, the agrarian society can evolve. Therefore, the science says that beyond, because Ice Age, during the Ice Age, what happens? Either every season is winter only, maybe harsh winter and mild winter. So it's very hard to imagine that a civilization can evolve when you have only one season throughout the year. So that is the one scientific evidence that beyond 16,000 BC, if you go, it's only Ice Age. A civilization, it's impossible to imagine for us today to whether a civilization can ever exist in an Ice Age. Now, that is the one scientific test. What I'm doing with the Yuga chronology, what our tradition says, 6 Manvantaras have been elapsed till date. That is the one point. And 432 Chaturyugas of the 7th Manvantara, these 432 Chaturyugas have also been elapsed. So then you can, in the six Manvantaras, every Manvantara has a 72 Chaturyugas, then multiply by 6, so 432 Chaturyugas have been elapsed. And you convert them into yugas, 1,728 yugas have been elapsed. Thereafter, in a Krita Yuga, so in the 7th Manvantara, presently is the 28th Chaturyuga. Now, what is the duration of a yuga that we need to explore? Actually, the Rigvedic era, a yuga was limited to only 5 years. Then a Chaturyuga was limited to 20 years. Later, the way the Indian astronomers evolved their mathematical simulations of astronomical calculations, they enlarged the durations of the yugas. So we need to differentiate that one. Historical timeline has to be with reference to how the yuga calendar has been evolved. But we should not calculate the yugas as per the very later stage. When later stage, the yuga became 4,32,000 years. So this difference we have to understand. So why the yuga chronology is very important? Because as per our text, like Mayasura, he wrote Surya Siddhanta at the end of the 28th Krita Yuga of 7th Manvantara. So you can only date Surya Siddhanta when you can fix a date for the 28th Krita Yuga, and when the Krita Yuga ended. At that time, Mayasura wrote the Surya Siddhanta. So you can only date when you can explore the how to date the yugas. Then Bharata Muni, Bharatanatya Shastra. Bharatanatya Shastra clearly mentions that he is writing Bharatanatya Shastra in Treta Yuga of the Vaivasvata Manvantara. So he is also referring to the 28th Treta Yuga. So that is very important. And Ramayana, the Ramayana took place at the end of the 28th Treta Yuga. So once you fix up the timeline of the Treta Yuga, then you can easily come out of the last century of the Treta Yuga. Then you can solve the dating of the Ramayana, the problem of dating of Ramayana. Then Mahabharata took place at the end of Dwapara Yuga. That is also 28th Dwapara Yuga. So this 28th Chaturyuga of the 7th Manvantara is very, very important. So then presently the 28th Kali Yuga is in progress. So if we solve the dating of the yugas, then we will unfold the real truth behind our yuga chronology. So what I did based on the various references, what you have to do, you have to study all Vedas. In Vedas, there is no reference of lakhs and crores of years of yugas. Okay. And if you read Brahmanas, Aranyakas, there also you have only the reference of yugas having 5 years or 20 years Chaturyugas. A Chaturyuga having only 20 years of duration. So that's why a yuga, because if you read Vedanga Jyotisha, the Lagadha Muni wrote Vedanga Jyotisha, Yugasya Panchavarshasya Kalajnanam Pratakshate. So he is saying that I am giving you a calendar having the 5 years, a yuga. The yuga calendar, when it was introduced during the Rigvedic period, a yuga had only 5 years. If you read one mantra of Rigveda, it says, Dirghatama Mamateyo Jujurvan Dashame Yuge. It means the Rishi named Dirghatama, he was the son of Mamata. That's why Mamateya name was used for him. So the Dirghatama Rishi, he became old, means he developed white hair when he reached the 10th yuga. If you calculate lakhs of years, then he might have lived crores of years. But that's not true. He is saying, the author of that mantra, he is saying that he became Jujurvan, his hair became white, he became little old when he reached the 10th yuga. 5 into 10, 50 years. That is natural. So the yuga was only 50 years, 5 years during the Rigvedic period. And a Chaturyuga was important because every 5 years, the Lagadha Vedanga Jyotisha, if you study, you will find that the Vedic period, we used to intercalate 2 lunar months in 5 years. If you do so, when you reach the 4th year, mean 20th year, you are going to accumulate 15 days extra. So what the Vedic astronomers prescribed, they said that whenever you reach the 20th year, means the last year of the Chaturyuga, when you reach, what you do, you have to intercalate only Ardhamasa. Ardhamasa means 15 days, don't intercalate full 30 days, the month of 30 days. So this is how we used to manage the calendar. The first Chaturyuga had, it used to start from Amanta, from Amavasya, but it used to end, a 20th year used to end at Purnima. Because now you are going to start a Purnimanta calendar from there. In the second Chaturyuga, when you reach the 20th year of the second Chaturyuga, then you will end at Amavasya. So alternatively, you used Amanta calendar, Purnimanta calendar. This is how your calendar 2 Chaturyugas, 40 years, the cycle used to complete. So this is how we manage the intercalation into. But later we realized that this is very complicated, and the general people, the following is the very difficult, and every time you need to correct. So they were looking for the better avenues or a better methodology to have a perpetual calendar without any corrections. For that purpose, during the somewhere this 28th, the end of the 20th Krita Yuga, Mayasura came up with a very novel idea. Why not we link up intercalation with the Jovian cycle, the cycle of Jupiter, 12 years. So this is how though we followed Yuga, Chaturyuga calendar, but we abandoned the intercalation based on 5 years, but we started reconciling it with the Jovian cycle, Jupiter cycle. Then your unit of the counting of years became 12 years cycle centric. Then what we did, why not we enlarge the cycle, because it is extremely difficult to correct a timeline within just 12 years. Then what is, they say 12 into 100, they take one yuga should have a 1200 years. This is how a yuga of 5 years has been transformed into 1200 years when the 28th Krita Yuga of the present Chaturyuga ended. So that's why a Treta Yuga means up to 28th Krita Yuga of the 7th Manvantara. Our calendar remained only 5 years Yuga, 20 year Chaturyuga. But after the Krita Yuga, the Treta Yuga, that Treta Yuga had a 1200 years. Then at the end of the Treta Yuga, the astronomers again started, they wanted a much more accuracy in calculations. So they enlarged 1200 into 12,000 years. Then they came out of an idea of differential duration. That's why the Dwapara Yuga had 2,400 years. And somewhere in the middle of the Dwapara Yuga, what the Indian astronomers did, they multiplied 12,000 by 360. So this is how 43,20,000. So this is how the Yuga chronology evolved. And this is actually for facilitating the accurate astronomical calendar. So now what I'm giving this chart clearly explains how our Yuga chronology evolved. So the date I will explain why 6777 BC. This is the date on which the 28th Krita Yuga of the 7th Manvantara ended. Okay. So from the ancient, the early Vedic period to till 677 BCE, your Yuga chronology was only a Yuga had 5 years, a Chaturyuga had 20 years only. But when you switched over to the Treta Yuga, your Yuga had only 1200 years. But later, after the Ramayana era, the 5577 BC, then you have gone for the 12,000 years of Chaturyuga. Then you follow 2,400 years of Dwapara Yuga. But in the middle of Dwapara Yuga, again astronomers revised and they enlarged 4,32,000 years. So this is the reason why Kali Yuga still continuing even after the almost 5,180 years have been elapsed. Okay, because now we are following very large Yuga, 4,32,000 years. But prior to Mahabharata or Mahabharata era, the concept of 4,32,000 years was never existed. Okay, so that's why we need to correct the chronological timeline, the historical timeline, based on the how the concept of Yuga and Chaturyuga evolved. Don't just apply 4,32,000 to all Yugas. Okay, that this is only applicable after Mahabharata because this was introduced only somewhere close to Mahabharata. Prior to Mahabharata, 12,000 was the Chaturyuga, but only Dwapara Yuga. But during Treta Yuga, it was only 1200. Beyond Treta Yuga, then only 5 years and 20 years. Now, when you add up these all these the calculations, then maximum you reach up to 14,000 to 16,000 BCE. At that period, our calendar probably commenced. So that we will see. Prior to that, I will just explain in Surya Siddhanta. There is a shloka, Asmin Krita Yugasyante Sarve Madhya Gata Graha. Because I am saying 6,777 BC is the sheet anchor date. Because we have many epocha of era where we can establish absolute dates from Buddha onwards. Probably even up to Mahabharata, we can establish absolute dates. But if we go beyond Mahabharata, how we are going to establish any absolute date which cannot be disputed at any. So that is the basic sheet anchor we need to reconcile all astronomical references or observations recorded in our literature. So this is the one shloka. It refers to a conjunction in when sun was in first degree of Aries. What I'll do, I'll just show, instead of explaining, I'll just show you one small video. Then you will probably appreciate better that I just made one documentary, because this year exactly we have completed 8,800 years of 800 years from the date of Surya Siddhanta, when Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta.
Siddhanta, Mayasura observed a rare conjunction of the sun, moon, and all planets, except their nodes and apsides were in conjunction in Aries, Mesha, on new moon day of Chaitra month at the end of the 28th Krita Yoga. Software simulations using the JPL Horizons ephemeris system established that such conjunction on Chaitra Shukla Pratipada occurred only once in the last 16,000 years. That is, on 22nd February 6778 BCE. Evidently, Mayasura had personally observed this conjunction in 6778 BCE and referred to this conjunction as an epoch for his Surya Siddhanta. In the 57th verse of chapter 1, Meshado means that sun was in the first degree of Aries, and Madhya Gataha means sun was in the middle of this conjunction of planets. The simulation shows that Venus, Saturn and Moon were located east of the sun, whereas Mercury, Mars and Jupiter were located west of the sun. The sun was in the first degree of Aries and in the middle of this 26-degree conjunction of all planets. The conjunction perfectly matches with the description given in the Surya Siddhanta. This rare conjunction occurred only once in the last 16,000 years. This establishes that Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta in 6778 BCE, and the calendar of Surya Siddhanta completes 8,800 years in the year 2022. Prior to
this is the one absolute date, what we get from the Surya Siddhanta. Based on that, we can arrive at chronology. This is the chronology, because so now 6777 BC becomes the sheet anchor date for us, because this is the time when 28th Krita Yuga ended and the Treta Yuga began. And how we can establish this date? That is the date of the conjunction, the rare conjunction observed by by Mayasura. That exact date is 28 February 6778 BCE. And such conjunction, it's because generally the astronomical events are cyclical. But this event, what I have checked up to 16,000 BC, I didn't go beyond because there is no point of checking any astronomical observation during the Ice Age period. Okay, so the last 16 to another 2000, if you add 18,000 years, this is the only date possible for dating this conjunction. That's why this is extremely important, because it gives an absolute date in a remote past, some 8,800 years before from today. So then what we have to do? We have to add up how many yugas have been elapsed. that 6 Manvantaras and the later. So that everything, that calculation adds up to it goes back to 15,962 BC. Around somewhere 16,000 BC, it may be our the basic calendar. Using a basic calendar, we generally call our year as a Varsh, because during the Vedic period, a calendar from rainy season to rainy season, because an agrarian society should know when the rainy season is going to start. So that's why if we follow the chronological history of the evolution of our calendar, that gives a perfect chronology. So this is how many yugas, because we generally counted, because at least an advanced civilization, whenever it start writing their history, they must have a calendar. Without a calendar, any civilization cannot write their history. So our history started when we have established a calendar. And then we started counting how many yugas, how many 5 years have been elapsed. Later, we introduced the Chaturyuga concept to do this Ardhamasa intercalation. Then we abandoned this 5-year and 20-year, and then we adopted this 12-year cycle. That is the timeline when our Kumbh Mela, why we celebrate every 12 years, the Kumbh Mela. That also related to the Jovian cycle. So that began. So when the Jovian cycle began, we entered into Siddhanta Jyotisha, very advanced astronomy. Prior to that, it is the pre-Siddhantic astronomy. So this is how our timeline goes back to 14,000 to 16,000 BC. So when we analyze the various astronomical observations available in Vedic and Brahmana texts, we can establish certain dates, like the reference to Brahma, a summer solstice at Dhanishta Nakshatra. So then that somewhere 15,000 to 14,000, so you can fix the date somewhere in the middle, 14,500 BC. Then winter solstice at Tishya or Pushya Nakshatra, that is linked to Brihaspati, the first Brihaspati, who was the Purohita, or a kind of an advisor to Indra, the first the Chakravarti king of Vedic period. That goes back to somewhere 14,000 BC. Then Vishwamitra, now he observed the precession. So this has been mentioned in Gopatha Brahmana, that Vishwamitra was the first rishi who observed the Sampatas. The Sampatas, actually the precessions. So he actually challenged the Vasishta, saying that now you can't locate the summer solstice Dhanishta. Actually, right now it is in Shravana. So when he's talking, and he revised the list of nakshatras starting from Shravana, and this is mentioned in Mahabharata. So that goes back to 13,500 BC. Then Vasishtha did more research, and then he come out. He actually, it was the first time Vasishtha observed the equinoxes. Then he says that your calendar should start from equinox, not from solstices. This was the major change in Vedic calendar, and introduced that 5-year and 20-year Chaturyuga, and they started the calendar from autumnal equinox. This is the reason all Vedic texts, all 4 Vedas, always they refer to Sharad. Sharad as equivalent to year. Jivema Sharadaha Shatam, Shranuyama Sharadaha Shatam. Numerous, at least I have seen 50 to 60 references to Sharad Ritu as the beginning of New Year in Vedas. So this is the reason we started that Ashwini Sukta, written by Vasishtha, and Ashwini as the rising star. This has been mentioned. So everything corroborates that the early Vedic period, the advanced calendar of that 5-year and 20-year Chaturyuga began somewhere 13,500 BCE, when autumnal equinox used to occur at Ashwini Nakshatra. I will one by one, I will explain. This is what I am doing. The Rigvedic hymns, Ashwini is the most important Devata. And after Agni and Indra, Agni Soma. Then there are at least 50 suktas relate. Ashwini is the Devata of Rigveda. Then Nirukta, it is written by Ashwini. So he actually referring to as a heliacal rising of Ashwini Nakshatra. So that also establishes that during the Rigvedic period, Ashwini was considered, means the occurrence of autumnal equinox was at Ashwini Nakshatra. And it was those two nakshatras. Actually, it's a nakshatra having two stars. So they named after the Ashwini Kumaras. They were the two brothers who were very famous during this Deva Yuga. We have 33 Devas, that 12 Adityas, 11 Rudras, then we have 8 Vasus and 2 Ashwini Kumaras. So this is why Ashwini became so much important during the Rigvedic period, because the calendar they followed that commenced somewhere in the beginning of Ashwini. That's why the Chaitra, the Ashwini, the Mesha Rashi became very auspicious for us due to this reason. Then the beginning of Sharad Ritu calendar. So this is the reason why entire Rigveda, not only Rigveda, Yajurveda, Sama or Atharva, actually many Rigvedic mantras have been repeated in Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. Even you come back to the Brahmana, the Aranyaka, they always counted the year starting from Sharad Ritu only. That is the basic evidence. Because wherever when we see, like Tilak, Balagangadhar Tilak, he wrote a book, The Orion. Then he says vernal equinox. Why you should? Because the problem when you are what equinox you have to calculate from that particular nakshatra, you have to refer to the Vedas. Don't just speculate that just 4000 BC vernal equinox used to occur somewhere in Mrigashira. So then you started counting that probably Vedas 4000 BC. But what you need to do, you have to first follow the Vedic references. Vedas followed Sharad Ritu calendar. That's why the autumnal equinox was at Sharad Ritu. So these are various references. I have collected 33 references of Sharad in Rigveda and 18 references in Taittiriya Samhita as a year. So Sharad Ritu was the synonymous to the one solar year. And this is the reason why Lata Deva Surya Siddhanta, it mentions Meshadau Deva Bhagaste. So he is saying that the Mesha, the zodiac of the Devas began from the Mesha Rashi, whereas Asura, the zodiac of Asura began from the Tula Rashi. So this is the 180 degree division of between Devas and Asura was also ensures that the early Vedic period, the calendar used to begin in the beginning of Mesha Rashi. And since there was a conflict between Devas and Asuras, actually Devas and Asuras were cousins. They had a political rivalry. So that's why Asuras, they wrote their own Veda called Asura Veda, where the Devas had the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and this tradition. Then the Asuras followed Vasanta Ritu calendar, not Sharad Ritu calendar. This is the difference between Asuras. Same Asura Veda of Rigvedic period, the same Asuras migrated to Persia. They carried Asura Veda with them. Same Asura Veda was recompiled by Zoroaster as Avesta. This is and you can see in Avesta, Indra is the villain. And in Rigveda, Vritrasura is the villain. So naturally, they were the political rivals. Indra is a god for us because he won the battle against the Vritrasura. And for Asuras, Vritra is the hero because he was in conflict with the Indra. This is the difference between Asura Veda and the Rigveda. Then slowly, now we started moving towards, now because they followed that, okay, we are following the equinox-based solar year and the lunisolar calendar, but how to reconciliation? Because now we started moving towards advanced research in the making of calendar. So now the Vedic Rishis, they observed the 12 Adityas, they linked with the 12 Rashis, 12 solar months. Okay, this is how the beginning of very basic, I can say, the trigonometry during the later Vedic period. And this is actually Vasishtha Maitra Varuni. He refers to these 12 solar months. And Taittiriya Samhita also refers to all 12 solar months. And the 360, the 1 year had a 366 days. So these are all mentioned in Rig Veda and Yajurveda. And Yajurveda even refers to one Adhika Masa, a 13th month, an intercalary month. So a well-developed luni-solar calendar existed during the period of Rig Veda and Yajurveda. Now, since the zodiac has been divided into 12 parts, okay, and the 360 degree came because a year had a 360 days or 366 days. Actually, that 360 division also, it is Indian, and the division of a zodiac into 12 parts is also a very elementary trigonometric idea. Now, since they divided, now the nakshatra system of 28 was established somewhere 11,200 BC. Okay, that's why the Mrigashiradi list. This is the reason why Mrigashira Nakshatra was called Agrayana. Now you can see the difference. First, the Vedic astronomers used to commence calendar from Sharad Ritu, autumnal equinox, but they used to count nakshatras starting from winter solstice, not from the equinox. Why? Because it is very easy to start, because it is from the solstice, sun actually starts moving different direction. So now you can exactly pinpoint an area. But from equinox, it is difficult for anybody during that time. Now it may be very easy for us, but at that time it is difficult to find out the equinox day exactly. So that because now you have to work out the degrees, 360 degrees and 30 degrees for each Aditya, each Rashi. So that's why Vedic people selected Uttarayana as for calculating the nakshatras. So this is how the Mrigashiradi total 28 nakshatra list has been introduced for the first time in Indian astronomy or in Vedic astronomy around 11,200 BCE. You just calculate when winter solstice occurred in Mrigashira nakshatra, the date goes back to 11,200 BC. Don't go for vernal equinox in Mrigashira, then you will land up in a 4,000 BC. Okay, this mistake has been committed by Balagangadhar Tilak and later some Indian scholars also. They argue for vernal equinox in Mrigashira. So this is how the 28 nakshatra system has been introduced 11,200 BC. Then after 1,000 years, there is numerous references. There's now the Rohinyadi, means the winter solstice shifted to Rohini. That is actually 10,200 BC. So this is mentioned in Mahabharata. So the Brahma, when the winter solstice shifted to Rohini, the Brahma came out with this Magha Shukladi calendar, because Vasishtha around 13,500 BCE, he introduced a calendar beginning from the Chaitra month, but after 2,000, 3,000 years, the luni-solar calendar now shifted. Now you can only start from Magha as the beginning of that autumnal equinox. Autumnal equinox the Sharad Ritu used to occur somewhere near to Magha. So this is how Magha Shukladi calendar came into existence around 10,200 BC. Then thereafter another 1,000 years have been elapsed. Now Kritikadi list. Now Atharva Veda has one Nakshatra Sukta. That Nakshatra Sukta gives all 28 the names of nakshatras. Okay. So 9,200 BC at that time, the Kritika, all Brahmanas, Aranyakas, even various other texts, they refer to the list of Kritikadi Nakshatra. Okay. This is how the dating should be 9,200 BC. The modern, some historians or some scholars, they date around 2,200 BC, where the vernal equinox shifted to Kritika at that time. But Rigvedic or the post-Vedic texts are referring to winter solstice in Kritika Nakshatra. And during this period, astronomical research went into more, actually, that reached more advanced stage. And they found that Abhijit is actually drifted from the ecliptical, and then they wanted to exclude because mathematically 360 degree, if you divide by 27, then you will get a very, without any fraction, 13.20 you will get. But when you divide by 28, it is giving some fraction. So that was not so easy for the mathematicians to do with that also. That's why they wanted only 27 parts. And actually, the sidereal path of the moon also 27.36 days or something. So it is actually closer to the 27, not 28. So these are the reasons they wanted to exclude one nakshatra. And the Vedic astronomers, post-Vedic astronomers, introduced the nakshatra system starting from 27 nakshatra when Ashwini shifted, when winter solstice shifted to Ashwini nakshatra. This occurred 7300 BC. When we said that now no more changing the list of, every time, every 1000 years, we have to restart the nakshatras, because the like we started from Mrigashiradi nakshatra. Thereafter, we again reset from the Rohini nakshatra. Thereafter, we reset from Kritika nakshatra. Now, around 7300 BC, we have now said that we will make some universal list. We will not change. So that's why this Ashwini nakshatra, starting from Ashwini, because again Mesha Rashi began. Right now, winter solstice shifted to Aries, means Ashwini nakshatra. This is how our Siddhantic, this was the beginning of Siddhantic astronomy. Now we have perfected our astronomy, and then when Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta, we have even gone for the longer duration of a yuga. This is the reason that 5-year Krita Yuga ended around 6777 BC, and Treta Yuga began somewhere 6777 BC. Now, we have understood from Vedic era to till Surya Siddhanta. So, Surya Siddhanta is the, I can say, the sheet anchor date for the end of the post-Vedic era. Now, that goes to the beginning of Treta Yuga era. So, and one more event took place in 6777 BC. A Saptarshi calendar was introduced. What is this Saptarshi calendar? आपको क्या था, पहले वैदिक युग में आपको 5 वर्ष बहुत इजी था. It was very easy to count elapsed years in the cycles of 5 years. So we used to say so many yugas have been elapsed. Once you have enlarged the duration of the yuga from 5 to 1200, nobody can live for 1200 years. Now it became very difficult. How can we count the elapsed years? Then they came out of a novel idea. Why not we name every cycle of 100 years against one nakshatra? Then we can easily remember how many sub-cycles of 100 years have been elapsed. So then, since the yuga duration have been elapsed, what the rishis came out of an idea, every 100 years they named after one nakshatra. Some people later imagined that Saptarshis are actually shifting to nakshatra every 100 years. That is not correct, because that is impossible. It is actually just a methodology to remember how many elapsed subcycles of 100 years have been elapsed. That's all. So what they did, first 100 years they named after Ashwini. Okay. Then you simply name every nakshatra. Once you reach 27 nakshatras, you restart the cycle again. That's all. So this is actually a Saptarshi calendar. They followed this kind of a methodology to remember the number of years elapsed in the history. But this gives very good input to start when Mahabharata occurred, because during the Mahabharata period, Saptarshis were in Magha Nakshatra. This has been mentioned in various texts, in Puranas, in Brihat Samhita, even in Rajatarangini. So that's why it is extremely important to fix the epoch of Saptarshi calendar to have the date of Mahabharata also. And there is a epigraphic evidence also. One inscription has been found in Hisse Borala area that gives an epigraph, because there was no, we don't need even epigraphic evidence also. Entire Rajatarangini Kalhana wrote Rajatarangini using the Saptarshi calendar. So Saptarshi calendar was very much in vogue in India, and that was that gives exactly our a true chronology, starting from 6777 BC. So I can say now we can fix absolute dates up to 6777 BCE using the chronology. Now, since the Treta Yuga, I said that till the 20th Krita Yuga, we had only 5 years. Now, Treta Yuga was not, the duration has been enlarged to 1200 years. So, the Treta Yuga continued for 1200 years. And Ramayana took place at the end of the last century. Last century is 5677, 5577. So, we can also corroborate it with the Tamil chronology. In the Tamil chronology, there were 3 Sangam periods. Okay. So now I have dated, because why? Because during the second Sangam period, Kavatapuram was the capital of Pandya, and Ramayana refers to Kavatapuram as the capital of Pandya. So this is how we can corroborate that, because during the Ramayana period, Kavatapuram was the capital of Pandyas. Now I will only refer it to how can I arrive an absolute date for the Ramayana event. This is the sheet anchor for the Ramayana is the comet in Moola Nakshatra. Because when Lakshmana, actually Rama ordered Vanara Sena to now march towards Sri Lanka, that time Lakshmana actually referring to certain astronomical observations. He says that now one comet is sitting in Moola Nakshatra and Ravana's Janma Nakshatra is also Moola Nakshatra. Now his destruction or his death is very, very assured. Now it is imminent. So he is actually predicting the death of Ravana. So this, if we can simulate in our whenever the references of comets in a nakshatra, 99% I assume that it is maybe referring to Halley, because only Halley comet has a very predefined or a predictable orbital path. Other comets which visit our Earth in thousands of years once, it is extremely difficult to say where it will come and when it will vanish. But the Halley's comet can be predicted. So, the nakshatra related references are actually related to Halley's comet only. So I have simulated using the Halley's comet. You have to take the stellarium. It is actually 5637 BC. And exactly the period it goes to somewhere 22, 23 BC, 23 August, and somewhere in this August and September, these 2 months, this Halley's comet was visible. And the magnitude was only 2.81. It was visible for anybody can easily see. So that was visible to naked eye. So based on that, I have arrived the timeline of various, when the Rama was born, and what was the birth date of Sita, then the marriage date, and when they left for Vanavasa. So you can easily corroborate the dates. Now, Mahabharata. How Mahabharata, the Surya Siddhanta date is the sheet anchor for entire our chronology beyond Mahabharata, because this gives our end of Krita Yuga date 6777 BCE. Then you have the 1200 years of Treta Yuga. Then you have the 2400 years of Dwapara Yuga. Okay. Then you corroborate from the evidence of Saptarshi calendar. So Saptarshi calendar says when Yudhishthira was ruling in Hastinapura, Saptarshis was in Magha Nakshatra. The dates are 3176, 3076 BC. So Mahabharata date has to be only this 100 years. You can't, it is impossible to date beyond 3176 or after 3076. Okay, so now you have to arrive a Mahabharata date only, can only possible within this 100 years. So there are many astronomical siddhantas I have dated. These are the various siddhanta, because when we are talking about siddhanta Jyotisha, so Surya Siddhanta, that actually the siddhanta Jyotisha, the period of siddhanta Jyotisha commenced in 6778, and almost at the same Paitamaha Siddhanta, it is actually the Vedic Siddhanta. Initially, we used to follow 5-year, 20-year Chaturyuga starting from Magha Shukladi. Then we started using the intercalation based on 12 years, but we followed only Vedic calendar Magha Shukladi. So that 5-year Yuga cycle continued, but we followed intercalation based on the 12-year sub-Jovian cycle. That is the difference between Paitamaha Siddhanta and Vedic, the pre-Surya Siddhanta Vedic calendar. Then we introduced Saptarshi calendar also, because we have to have a methodology to count how many years have been elapsed. For that purpose, we came out, okay, every 100 years, we named after one nakshatra to remember that how many hundreds of years have been elapsed. Then Brahma Siddhanta came because Surya Siddhanta has been introduced by Asura, Mayasura. So some kind of a traditional problem. Why should I follow Asura Siddhanta, though that may be accurate? Then Brahma Siddhanta has been introduced, especially in South India. Then they also started using Chaitradi calendar, but the 60-year cycle, everything, it was almost similar to the Surya Siddhanta, but they started Prabhava Samvatsara, the 60-year cycle, differently. That's why today what we are following, that Prabhavadi, that 60-year cycle, our tradition goes back to 6773 BC, not 778. 677 BC is the Asura tradition. That's why entire West and Chinese follow the 60-year cycle from 6777 BC, where the Brahma Siddhanta we follow 6700. Then we have a Vasishta Siddhanta, Romaka Siddhanta, Yavana Siddhanta. All are generally based on the Surya Siddhanta and minor variations. Then we came to the Parashara Siddhanta. So this is how epoch of Kali Yuga. Now we generally think that there was only one epoch of Kali Yuga, 3101 BC, but we have to differentiate between the calendar, because what is epoch of Kali Yuga? It is not any big like in Western cosmology, flood changes the Yuga. So something it's not anything, some kind of a celestial event occurred. It's only beginning of a new epoch in a calendar. That's all. It has nothing to do with any celestial event or any supernatural event. We need to look for beginning of Yuga. It is actually beginning of a new cycle in a calendar. That's all. So the Kali Yuga cycle cannot begin at the same year for all calendars. The Paitamaha Siddhanta followed 100-year cycle. So in Paitamaha Siddhanta, Kali Yuga can begin only when 100-year cycle ends. So that can begin either 3176 or 3076. That cannot begin in somewhere in middle 310. That's for Paitamaha Siddhanta 3176 BC. This is the reason Mahabharata followed the Paitamaha Siddhanta Magha Shukladi calendar. That's why it is stated in Mahabharata that Kali Yuga has already begun. Okay, before Mahabharata era, Mahabharata war, Kali Yuga had already been begun. This has been mentioned in and Brahma Siddhanta. No, Brahma Siddhanta was following 60-year cycle. So you can't start Kali Yuga in the middle of the cycle. You can only start when cycle ends and the new cycle of 60-year begins. So for Brahma Siddhanta, Kali Yuga was 3173 BCC. This has been mentioned by the Aryabhatta. Aryabhatta was following Brahma Siddhanta. And there was another Paitamaha Siddhanta. They actually followed 60-year cycle, not 100-year cycle. So due to that, they used to count Prabhava Samvatsara when Jupiter was in Dhanishta, not Ashwini. Because Ashwini was the tradition of Asuras, where the Paitamaha Siddhanta followed Dhanishta Nakshatra. Whenever Jupiter reached Dhanishta, then your Prabhava Samvatsara should begin. This is actually how to count 12 years from where to where. So Dhanishta to Dhanishta is the cycle followed by Paitamaha Siddhanta, where Surya Siddhanta followed Ashwini to Ashwini. Later, Latadeva, he actually transformed the Mayasura Surya Siddhanta into Deva tradition. Means in Mayasura Surya Siddhanta, they followed only different 1,80,000 years as the Yuga cycle. Okay, and their sub-cycle was 3,000 years, where the Devas followed this Chaturyuga 43 lakhs 20,000 years. So he actually transformed that cycle into 43 lakhs 20,000 years of Chaturyuga. But Latadeva wanted to begin a yuga only from a conjunction. He was not interested in his cycles of 100 years or 60 years. So then he observed one in 3101 BCE. He observed one conjunction of planets in Revati Nakshatra in Meena Rashi. Then he started that now Kali Yuga should begin. So that's why the Surya Siddhanta calendar, what we are following, we generally believe that Kali Yuga began 3101, but 3101 was the Vijaya Samvatsara or Jaya Samvatsara, but it was not, you can't begin any cycle in the middle of the 60-year cycle. But Latadeva insisted that the Yuga should begin from a conjunction. So these are the 4-5 difference of opinions about the beginning of Kali Yuga. This is the reason we find some references like Mahabharata says Kali Yuga had already been begun. Then the Mahabharata war took place only after 3101 BC. So these arguments are not tenable because actually Mahabharata was using Paitamaha Siddhanta. So in Paitamaha Siddhanta, Kali Yuga began in 3176 BC. And one more problem, in Vishnu Dharma Purana and various Purana, they say Kali Yuga began only when Sri Krishna died. Means after Mahabharata and another 36 years. So 3126, the people who used to follow 60-year cycle, they used to say the 60-year cycle, the Kali Yuga began 3126 BC. So now what you have to do, you have to add 36 year 3126. 3162 is the Mahabharata. Sri Krishna left this world in 3126 BC. This way, this is the how we can corroborate all in conflicting references also when you understand how the epoch of Kali Yuga began in various calendars. Because Kali Yuga was actually beginning of a new cycle in a calendar. That's all. It has nothing to do with any celestial years. And the Yudhishthira Samvat references are there, like Kalidasa's Jyotir Vidabharanam is referring to Yudhishthira Samvata 3043. And there are even some Vanshavalis have referred to Yudhishthira Samvat. Then we have to, I have actually, like Aryabhatiyam, it says that Kali Yuga began Bharatat Purvam, before Mahabharata war, because Aryabhatta was following 3173 BCE, the Brahma Siddhanta's cycle, 60-year cycle, beginning from the Ashwini Nakshatra. And one Yellaya is giving very good inputs. Kalyabdaha Ruparahita Pandavabda Prakirtita. So Yudhishthira Samvat, what you have to do, you have to minus 12 years from Kali Yuga. Then so 3173, you minus 12 years, 3161 BC. This is the beginning of the Yudhishthira Samvat. Means when Mahabharata war ended, somewhere in the Margashirsha month, because Kartika Amavasya was the day Mahabharata war began. And so this is how, and there is an epigraphic evidence of high-hole inscription. I have the Shakanta era. I don't know the people who have listened to me in the Sangam talks. I have explained that there are two different Shakas. It's not the 78. 583 BC is the Shaka. So what you have to do, you have to interpret that shloka, Trimshatru Tri Sahasreshu Bharata Dahavadita. This is the inscription clearly giving the date of Mahabharata, because this gives the both dates, the date of Mahabharata as well as the date in the Shaka era also. So once you establish the Shaka era of the whole inscription, you can easily calculate the date of Mahabharata era. So this is how I have established that Mahabharata war took place in 3162 BCE. This is how we can establish our entire chronology, starting from early Vedic era to till Mahabharata. From Mahabharata onwards, we will discuss in our next session. Thank you. Or any questions, then we can discuss.
Shyamji has asked this question, that in your book, Manu to Mahabharat, the period
Yes.
of Gautam Buddha given by you is 1845 to 1865 BCE, but many researchers and historians arrive at 6th 6th to the 5th century BC. Your comments on that?
I think this is not the topic of the today's session, but I have explained it. You have to read my second book, that is the From Mahabharata to Medieval Era. I have written full chapter on Buddha. The methodology, arriving the chronology, what modern historian follows, that is correct. Okay, only they committed 3 blunders, what I have found. First, Shaka era has 2 different epochs. It's not one. So I have given various epigraphic evidence and literary evidences, even just Kalidasa. Till Britishers' arrival, somewhere 1784, if we take the date of the that William Jones, we had always a tradition that Vikramaditya, because we were using the Vikrama Samvat from 57 BC, and Vikramaditya had 9 Ratnas, and Varahamira, Kalidasa were in his court. Okay, and Varahamira, Kalidasa, both are referring to Shaka Samvat. Now, how it is possible? A Shaka era that commenced only 78 AD, how can that person live before 100 years of commencement of that epoch? And he is mentioning 445. Kalidasa is referring to Shaka 445, but he is giving his date in Kali Yuga 3068. So he is saying that I am writing Jyotir Vidabharanam in 33 BC, and he is referring to Shaka 445. Same Varahamihira also referring to 427 Shaka. Okay, now traditionally both were contemporaries, but modern chronology, they date Kalidasa around 400 or 450 AD, and they date Varahamihira even after the death of Kalidasa, and maybe after 5052, 580 AD. So this is the major inconsistency. Then I went into the epigraphic evidences, and based on that, there is the 583 BC. This is the 661 years mistake in the chronology. Okay. And second, considering the Mahavira Buddha contemporaries, actually there was another 700 years gap between the Buddha and Mahavira. If you add up, 1381 years gap. So this is the gap what I have explained. Buddha attained Nirvana 1864 BC, not in 483 BC. The difference is 1381 years. This is actually killed our entire chronology. These 2 errors, because the link for the Mahabharata we just lost it. The traditional chronology says that Nandas lived after 1500 years from Mahabharata. So Nanda, Mahapadmananda, he was coronated in Magadha when 1500 years elapsed from Mahabharata. Then if Nandas you have to date somewhere 350 BC, then Mahabharata was maybe hardly 1700 or 1800 BC. On what basis you are following a tradition in 3200 BC? This is the real reason behind why our entire traditional chronology has been rejected. So the date of Buddha Nirvana has to be corrected to establish our true chronology from Mahabharata, even beyond Mahabharata.
नमस्ते और बहुत ही सुंदर आज आपका व्याख्यान जो है रहा है, यद्यपि मैं कई बार सुन चुका हूं। मेरी एक जिज्ञासा है कि ये कलयुग के समय मघा नक्षत्र में ही थे सप्तऋषि, और 100 वर्ष तक एक ही नक्षत्र 100 वर्ष तक रहते हैं। तो जो वर्तमान में नक्षत्र चल रहा है, क्या उससे हम कुछ को रिलेट कर सकते हैं समय का?
जी,
जैसे तो क्या हम उस काल गणना की ये सप्तऋषि में जो 100 वर्ष तक एक नक्षत्र रहता है, उस आधार पर कर सकते हैं?
हाँ, मैंने ना आपको ये जब मैं सप्तर्षि कैलेंडर की बात करता, मैं आपको स्पष्ट रूप से मैंने समझाया कि ये एस्ट्रोनॉमिकल ऑब्जर्वेशन के आधार पर नहीं है, क्योंकि नक्षत्र जो है कभी अपना स्थान ऐसा 360 डिग्री नहीं बदलता है। ठीक है, ये ग्रह है जो कि वो 360 डिग्री उनका रोटेशन होता है, चंद्रमा है, आप सूर्य की भी कह सकते हैं, लेकिन नक्षत्र जो है वो स्टैटिक रहता है, तो उनका मूवमेंट उतना नहीं होता। ये एक्चुअली ये सर्कमपोलर स्टार है सप्तर्षि जो है, उनका हर 100 वर्ष में नक्षत्र बदलना ये संभव नहीं है। ये एक्चुअली ये जो है ना एक कुछ इतिहास, क्योंकि जिनको एस्ट्रोनॉमी, क्योंकि किसी भी इंडियन एस्ट्रोनॉमर ने ये नहीं कहा, ये केवल इतिहासकारों ने कहा जिनको एस्ट्रोनॉमी का नॉलेज नहीं है। जैसे पुराण लिखने वाले थे या पुराण में, उनको एस्ट्रोनॉमी की उतनी नॉलेज नहीं थी, उन्होंने वैसे कहा है। वस्तुतः ये था कि जब 5 वर्ष का युग चल रहा था तो हमारे लिए बहुत आसान है कि कितने 5 वर्ष के साइकिल समाप्त हुए, तो हम युगों को गिनती कर लेते थे कि इतने युग समाप्त हुए, ठीक है। तो वो बहुत सरल था काउंट करना कि कितने वर्ष बीत गए हमारे इतिहास के, उस समय हम युगों में ही गिनती कर लेते थे, इतने युग समाप्त हो गए, ठीक है। क्योंकि एक व्यक्ति के जीवन में 5 वर्ष का, 20 वर्ष का चतुर्युग बहुत आसान है गिनती करना। लेकिन जब आपने युग का साइकिल 5 वर्ष से 1200 वर्ष किया, तो कोई एक व्यक्ति 1200 वर्ष तो जी नहीं सकता। तो अब आप एक जनरेशन कभी जी नहीं सकता, तो अब ये इलैप्स्ड ईयर्स, माने कि जितने वर्ष समाप्त हुए उसकी गिनती कैसे करेंगे। तो इस समस्या का समाधान के लिए ये सप्तर्षि साइकिल को इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया कि हम हर 100 वर्ष को एक नक्षत्र का नाम देते हैं। क्योंकि आजकल है ना, कुछ याद रखने के लिए कुछ ट्रिक्स अपनाने पड़ते हैं, तो ये एक प्रकार का ट्रिक अपनाएगा। क्योंकि 27 नक्षत्र हैं, 27 नक्षत्र को आप क्या करो, हर एक 100 वर्ष को एक नक्षत्र का नाम दे दो, तो एक 2700 वर्षों का साइकिल हो गया। उसके बाद दोबारा साइकिल स्टार्ट करिए, फिर आप याद रखिए कितने 2700 वर्ष साइकिल समाप्त हुए। इस तरीके से गिनती की गई, तो तब जो है 3176 से लेके 3076 वाला जो 100 वर्ष था, उस समय उस 100 वर्ष का नाम आया मघा नक्षत्र के नाम पे। हमें ये ढूंढने की कोशिश नहीं करना कि सप्तर्षि क्या मघा नक्षत्र में है, ये संभव नहीं है। ये केवल याद रखने की एक वो उस तरीके से ये सप्तर्षि कैलेंडर की परंपरा रही है। तो ये उसके आधार पर नहीं, मैंने जो कहा ना, ये जो कंजंक्शन है जिसको सूर्य सिद्धांत में मयासुर रेफर कर रहे हैं, उसका आप एग्जैक्ट डेट मैं चैलेंज कोई भी चाहे कर ले, वो एक ही डेट संभव है पिछले 20,000 वर्षों में, वो है 22 फरवरी 6778, 22 फरवरी 6778 BC, एग्जैक्टली 8800 ईयर समाप्त होते हैं आज। इसलिए मैंने वो एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री मैंने बनाई है, वो मैं आप लिंक शेयर कर दीजिए सबके लिए, तो वो डॉक्यूमेंट्री आप देख लीजिए, 24 मिनट्स का है। वो कंप्लीटली एक्सप्लेन करता है किस तरीके से हमारा कैलेंडर इवॉल्व हुआ, क्योंकि हमारे कैलेंडर की हिस्ट्री से ही हमें अपनी क्रोनोलॉजी पता लग जाता है। क्योंकि सारे एस्ट्रोनॉमिकल ऑब्जर्वेशन जितने भी ग्रंथों में उपलब्ध है, हमें इस जो कैलेंड्रिकल इवोल्यूशन में एक्सप्लेन करना है, आइसोलेशन में नहीं। तो इसलिए ये कोई एस्ट्रोनॉमिकल ऑब्जर्वेशन नहीं है कि सप्तर्षि को किसी नक्षत्र में ढूंढने हैं, वो साइंटिफिकली गलत है।
मेरा पहला सवाल है वेदवीर जी कि मेनी रिसर्चर्स हैव डिपेंडेड ऑन द स्टेलेरियम सॉफ्टवेयर. How accurate is the stellarium software or other planetary softwares? Number 1. दूसरा सवाल है कि जब सूर्य सिद्धांत की रचना हुई होगी तो वो तो ओरल ट्रेडिशन में रही होगी, क्योंकि कहा जाता है कि सबसे पहले तो शायद गणेश जी ने अगर किसी चीज को लिपिबद्ध किया था तो वो महाभारत था। तो ओवर द इयर्स क्या ये संभावना नहीं हो सकती कि सूर्य सिद्धांत में जो उस समय वर्णन था और आज है उसमें काफी डिस्क्रिपेंसीज हो गई होंगी? नंबर 3, आपकी रिसर्च के हिसाब से महाभारत की एक पर्टिकुलर डेट है, ठीक है। महाभारत में एक आख्यान आता है, अब वो कितना सही है कितना गलत है ये तो रिसर्चर्स ही बता सकते हैं, कि जब युद्ध के बाद जब भीम मिलने गए धृतराष्ट्र से, तो कृष्ण जी ने उनकी एक लोहे की मूर्ति उपस्थित की। अगर मैं गलत हूं तो बताइएगा। तो ये स्पष्ट दर्शाता है या ये इंगित करता है कि उस समय लोहे का प्रचलन था। लेकिन हमारे यहाँ लोहे का जो प्रचलन था या जो आयरन एज है वो तो बहुत ही रिसेंट है। नंबर 4, मैंने थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ा है तोल्काप्पियम और ये जो दक्षिण के जो ग्रंथ हैं, और वो इनडायरेक्ट सोर्सेज ही हैं, डायरेक्ट सोर्सेज तो नहीं है। उसमें केवटपुरम का वो सब लिखा हुआ है और उसमें संगम लिटरेचर की भी डेट्स लिखी हुई हैं, 8000 और जो 3 संगम हुए। लेकिन दिक्कत ये है कि संगम लिटरेचर के जो पहले के जो ग्रंथ हैं वो सारे बह गए हैं, और जो भी हमको मिलता है वो तोल्काप्पियम से मिलता है, और जिसके ऊपर हम मतलब पूरी तरह विश्वास नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि 8000 अगर साल कोई पहले बोल रहा है, सो इट इज एन इनडायरेक्ट एविडेंस। तो ये मेरे 3-4 सवाल हैं जो आप कृपया उनका जवाब देने का अनुरोध करें। धन्यवाद।
हाँ ठीक है, मैं अभी करता हूँ, कहीं बीच में अगर कोई प्रश्न भूल गया था तो दोबारा मुझे याद दिलाइएगा। पहला ये है, आपने कहा कि स्टेलारियम सॉफ्टवेयर ये रिलायबल है। जितने भी सॉफ्टवेयर्स हैं उन सबका है ना, जो जो टाइम करेक्शन है, मैं उस पे जा ही नहीं रहा हूँ कि आपका सेलेशियल के कैलकुलेशंस में कहाँ हो रहा है। सबसे पहले हमें प्लैनेटरी मोशंस के लिए एक नासा का डेवलप्ड जेपीएल होराइजन्स, ये एक डेल्टा टी करेक्शन का एक मेथडोलॉजी है। अगर आप उसको यूज करेंगे, चाहे सॉफ्टवेयर कोई भी हो, प्लैनेटरी पोजीशंस एक जैसा ही दिखे। ठीक है, तो इसलिए जो है सॉफ्टवेयर के कैलकुलेशंस पर, हाँ, नासा खुद ये लिख देता है कि अगर 3000 बीसी पे जाने पर मैं उसकी एक्यूरेसी की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं लेता। ठीक है, लेकिन ये देखना कि ऐसा नहीं है कि कुछ बहुत दिनों का अंतर हो जाता है, क्योंकि जो ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्सेस है वो भी अफेक्ट करते हैं उनका। मून तो काफी इरेटिक होता ही है उसका मोशन, इसलिए जो है हमेशा उसको तात्कालिक गति देखकर ही उसकी जब भी हम इक्लिप्स की गणना करते हैं, इसलिए सोलर इक्लिप्सेस एंड ल्यूनर इक्लिप्सेस को 2000 बीसी से आगे देता ही नहीं है नासा, क्योंकि थोड़ा बहुत भी टाइम वैरी करेगा तो फिर लोकेशन भी वैरी करेगा, कहाँ दिखेगा कहाँ नहीं दिखेगा, उस पर एक समस्याएं हो जाती है। लेकिन प्लैनेटरी मोशंस में बहुत ही कुछ मिनट्स का, कुछ अगर आप 10,000 या 15,000 बीसी में जाएंगे तो 1 घंटे का या आधे घंटे का अंतर आ सकता है। तो यही है, तो वो इतिहास के लिए उतना अंतर कोई महत्व नहीं रखता, क्योंकि हम जब तक कैलेंडर में एक दिन की गड़बड़ी ना आ जाए तब तक वो एस्ट्रोनॉमिकल कैलकुलेशंस एक्यूरेट है। तो इसलिए जेपीएल होराइजन वाला जो डेल्टा टी करेक्शन या जो यूफेम्ब्रिस उन्होंने एस्टैब्लिश की है वो बहुत एक्यूरेट है, और वो उसके बेसिस पर आप ये जो प्लैनेटरी कंजंक्शन मैंने कहा ना, जो 6778 बीसी, इसको मैंने पूना में एक आयुका एक इंस्टीट्यूट है, इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटीज सेंटर फॉर एस्ट्रोनॉमी एंड एस्ट्रोफिजिक्स, उसमें एक सौमिक है, उन्होंने he verified based on various other, and he actually confirmed that yes, the conjunction जिसकी सूर्य सिद्धांत में कही गई है वो 28 फरवरी 6778 बीसी ही आता है, चाहे आप किसी भी सॉफ्टवेयर में चेक कर लीजिए। ठीक है, लेकिन अगर आप ये जो मैं डेल्टा टी करेक्शन कर रहा हूँ ना, अगर आप बहुत सारे भी अवेलेबल है उसमें अंतर आ सकता है। मैं नासा का इसलिए बता रहा हूं क्योंकि वो बहुत ही एक्यूरेटली उसको बनाया गया था। वो जेपीएल होराइजन इज द मोस्ट एडवांस्ड एंड एक्यूरेट डेल्टा टी करेक्शन अवेलेबल टुडे। ठीक है, और दूसरा आपने कहा कि सूर्य सिद्धांत के ये कंजंक्शन को हम कैसे माने, सब लोग सुन के आते थे। ये आपको, मुझे लगता है कि आप अभी भी जो औपनिवेशिक उन्होंने बताया कि आप जो है केवल सुन के किताब लिखते थे। कोई भी सिविलाइजेशन बिना लिपि के किताबें लिख नहीं सकता। एक दूसरी मैं बताता हूं, संस्कृत भाषा का उद्भव असंभव है बिना लिपि के, क्योंकि संस्कृत भाषा जो है वो एक आर्टिफिशियल लैंग्वेज है, जैसे आजकल प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज है। कोई आदमी ये कहे कि जावा लैंग्वेज पहले पैदा हुआ उसके बाद सिंटैक्स आया, ये उतनी ही मूर्खता है। उसी प्रकार संस्कृत का ग्रामर, संस्कृत लैंग्वेज, संस्कृत के बाद संस्कृत का लैंग्वेज आया, व्याकरण आया, ये भी उतना ही निरर्थक है। क्योंकि जब आर्टिफिशियल लैंग्वेज, क्योंकि संस्कृत एक इम्प्रोवाइज लैंग्वेज है, आर्टिफिशियली उसमें ना ग्रामर के जैसे संधि है, हर एक नेचुरल लैंग्वेजेस में संधियां नहीं होती। जो वैदिक संस्कृत में संधियां परफेक्टली यूज की गई हैं, क्योंकि वो तभी संभव है जब आपके पास फोनेटिक लॉजिक हो और फोनेटिक स्क्रिप्ट हो। उसके बिना संधियों का कॉन्सेप्ट असंभव है। ठीक है, और जो बहुत सारे कॉन्टेक्स्ट फ्री ग्रामर जो ऋग्वेद में है, वैदिक संस्कृत में कॉन्टेक्स्ट फ्री, अग्नि मीडे पुरोहितम यज्ञस्य, ये प्रथम मंत्र है, उसमें किसी भी शब्द को कहीं भी रख लीजिए उस मंत्र का अर्थ वही होता है। ये जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट फ्री ग्रामर है ये आर्टिफिशियली इंपोज किया गया था संस्कृत। इस वजह से संस्कृत केवल विद्वानों की ही भाषा रही, सामान्य लोगों की भाषा, वो जो भी करप्टेड संस्कृत प्राकृत जो भी रहा वही रहा है। इसलिए वैदिक संस्कृत का उद्भव असंभव है बिना लिपि के। श्रुति क्यों कहा गया वेदों को? क्योंकि वेद एक पवित्र ग्रंथ हो गए थे, उच्चारण में गलती से पाप होता है ये माना गया था, इसलिए कहा गया था गुरुमुख से सुनकर आपको लेना है, इसलिए वेद श्रुति है, इसलिए नहीं कि हमको लिखना नहीं आता। अब ये कैसे हो गया कि लोग कहते हैं 300 BC या 400 BC में जब अशोक ने इंस्क्रिप्शंस लिखा तभी हमको लिखना है। क्या हम सडनली इतना वर्ल्ड का एडवांस्ड स्क्रिप्ट आज तक विश्व नहीं अभी भी ABCD में लिखता है, जबकि हमने फोनेटिक एडवांस स्क्रिप्ट क्या रातों रात हम लोग इन्वेंट कर लिए। तो ये कहना कि हम 10,000 20,000 मंत्रों वाला बहुत बड़ा ग्रंथ माइंड में लिख के चलते थे, ये असंभव है। किसी भी सिविलाइजेशन में ऐसा हो नहीं सकता। स्क्रिप्ट वैदिक मैं ये कह रहा हूं कि बिना स्क्रिप्ट के वैदिक संस्कृत का उद्भव संभव नहीं है। दो, कॉन्टेक्स्ट फ्री ग्रामर और संधियों वाला कॉन्सेप्ट ये तभी संभव है आपके पास कोई स्क्रिप्ट हो। तो ये संस्कृत का ये कहना कि उस समय लिपि नहीं थी, केवल मौखिक परंपरा से चल रहा था, ये नहीं। सारे ग्रंथ उस समय एक स्क्रिप्ट रहा है पत्तों पे ही, क्योंकि पत्ते ही हमारे पास उपलब्ध थे, पत्तों पे लिखा जाता था, वो तो बार बार आपको लिखना पड़ता। तो आज आपको कहीं पर भी खोदने में नहीं मिलता है कि कहाँ कुछ कोई पुराने 8,000 साल पहले लिखा हुआ ग्रंथ मिल जाए आपको, वो संभव नहीं, क्योंकि आप एक कंटिन्यूअस सिविलाइजेशन। ठीक है। और आपका ये और तीसरा प्रश्न था लोहे से संबंधित कि लोहे का है तो लौह युग। आप अगर सारे वैदिक ग्रंथों में देख लीजिए, ज्यादातर जो अयस का वर्णन है वो उसका प्रयोग होता है कॉपर के लिए। वैदिक युग से लेके आपके पास केवल ओर का है। जब आपको कॉपर ओर मिलता है किसी भी मेटल, क्या उसको आयरन ओर नहीं मिल सकता था? क्या उसको पिघलना नहीं जानता था? क्या प्रॉब्लम था आयरन के साथ कि वो रस्ट हो सकता था? तो वो एक तरह का उस समय हमने मास्टर नहीं किया था कि आयरन को प्रोसेस कैसे किया। तो हम ज्यादातर कॉपर का ही प्रयोग ज्यादा करते थे। लोहे का वर्णन है गोपत ब्राह्मण में, वेदो वैदिक काल में सबसे, लेकिन हमने कभी आयरन को आपके डे टू डे यूज के लिए प्रयोग नहीं किया। नॉलेज था, लेकिन हमने कंटिन्यूअस रिसर्च किया। जब हमने वुड्स स्टील वाले लेवल तक पहुंचे लगभग 2000 BC के आसपास, ठीक है, उसके बाद से आयरन का प्रयोग बहुत ज्यादा होने लगा। यही युद्ध शैली भी बदले, क्योंकि महाभारत काल तक धनुर्धर ही बहुत बड़ा वीर होता, उस समय तक तलवारों का प्रयोग उतना अधिक नहीं होता था। ठीक है। तो जब से वुड स्टील बनने लगा भारत में, तब से जो है तलवारों का प्रयोग पूरे वर्ल्ड में भी होने लगा, क्योंकि हमारा ही स्टील बाहर एक्सपोर्ट होने लगा। तो ये कहना, ये जो ये सोचना कि पहले गोल्ड का इन्वेंशन करेगा उसके बाद सिल्वर का इन्वेंशन करेगा, ऐसा सीक्वेंशियल इन्वेंशन ही होगा, ये कोई जरूरी नहीं है। भारत एक एडवांस सिविलाइजेशन था। लगभग जितने मेटल्स का वर्णन है उन सारे मेटल्स का हमने लगभग 10,000 11,000 BC में हमें नॉलेज था, लेकिन कॉपर और ब्रोंज का यूसेज हम बहुत ज्यादा करते रहे, क्योंकि आयरन रस्ट होता था, इसलिए आयरन मनुष्य के डे टू डे यूसेजेस में नहीं आया था, या हम लोगों के पास मेथडोलॉजी इतनी नहीं थी कि उतना प्यूरिफाइड स्टील का प्रयोग कर सके। अरे हमने तो जिंक को भी डिस्टिल करना सीख लिया था बहुत पहले से, लेकिन आयरन को हम चाह रहे थे कि उसको जब हमने बहुत मास्टर उस पर रिसर्च करके मास्टर किया वुड स्टील लेवल तक, तब हम लोग उसका वो वर्ल्ड के एक्सपोर्टर बने स्टील के। इसलिए ये जो युगों का है ना, जैसे कॉपर एज, ब्रॉन्ज एज एंड आयरन एज, एक आर्टिफिशियल मेथड, जिन्हें सिविलाइजेशनल इवोल्यूशन के क्रोनोलॉजी नहीं पता उनके लिए ऐसा लगता है, क्योंकि प्री हिस्ट्री को कैसे डिफाइन करें, वो ऐसे कर लेते हैं क्योंकि कुछ है ही नहीं उनके पास। नेचुरली स्टील का प्रयोग सबसे ज्यादा पड़ा जब वुड स्टील का इन्वेंशन हुआ।
I wanted to ask that because of the adoption of the Julian calendar, what are some of the major chronological recording blunders that have happened because of the adoption of the Julian calendar?
Yeah, first, the effect of Julian calendar is we have forgotten our scientific calendar. Julian and this Gregorian calendar is the most third-class calendar ever, because it's just a civilian calendar. It has nothing to do with the solar motion, nothing to do with the lunar motion. But इनके लिए प्रॉब्लम होता है वो ईस्टर का डेट चाहिए। तो फॉर द कैलकुलेटिंग द ईस्टर you have to first fix vernal equinox in a calendar. Okay. Thereafter, you look for the full moon. Then you look for the Sunday. So this was the major problem for the Christians, because they used to follow this January to December, some civil calendar. They think that this is the most advanced because I somehow reconcile 365.25 days more accurately. But Indians from the Vedic era, why Brahma became so revered person for us because he began all scientific research. He linked the astronomical observation with the calendar mean. This is the first advancement in Indian astronomical sciences. The Brahma, he linked the Indian calendar with the astronomical observation. That's why we can easily verify the dates. When we say so and so nakshatra, if I ask what is the nakshatra today, you have no answer. Okay, today is Purnima. And if you know that it is an Ashwin Masa, if you think only October, you have no sense. Ashwin Masa means the Purnima, when full moon occurs in Ashwini Nakshatra, then only that becomes Ashwin Masa. So we can say today is Ashwini Nakshatra. It's very easy to find out those days. So this was all Ashwini. You can easily observe in the night, you go and see where the moon, the location of the moon, and then you find out the nakshatra of the that. So this is how we have observed the astronomical observation, then calculated this, because it is not possible to find out the nakshatra of Surya, because daytime no stars are visible. So due to this introduction of Julian calendar, we actually cut off from our tradition. That is first thing. So that led to the even understanding of our own text, like whatever the nakshatras have been. So that's why it is we must introduce Indian calendar with nakshatras, and as well this lunisolar calendar is the most scientific calendar. May not be, it may be little inconvenient for a civil calendar, but why? Because intercalation is required. Intercalation, additional month, that will create a problem. But how it matters? If somebody gets 13 months salary in a year, what is the problem for you or anyone? The people think that in a year so we may get salary for 13 months, no problem. What is the why to? So the Julian calendar let us actually, we are cut off from this astronomy, the science. That's actually, it's a very fascinating. And during that time, just observing every night, because आजकल हमारे पास लाइट है, टीवी है, मोबाइल से सब कुछ है. At that time, once you are sleeping, if you are not, you're just, you had the enough time to just observe the celestial objects. This is how the astronomical observations recorded in our text. They're the real gems in our literature, which actually lead to exact dating of the events.
I was just wondering, in terms of the Mahajanapada, etc., if you've touched upon it, and also in terms of the history of the rest of Southeast Asia, would that be further backdated backdated to whatever relevant or accepted dates we have today?
Yes. What we need to do, we are actually organizing one international conference in IIT Delhi on 17th, 18th November. Okay. There actually we are going to discuss the chronology and the out of India migrations. Okay. And second, as I said, Ramayana. Let us first have the Ramayana linked with the Southeast Asia. The Ramayana somewhere 6 millennium, 5600 BCE on. What happened? The Ikshwaku kings were ruling over entire North India. That was they used to dominate. Even the Raghuvansha, referred the Raghu, conquered up to Afghanistan, and he actually drove the Mlechas away from that area. And these are the numerous references. And if you go to the Burma, there is the ancient city, Vaishali, there is a city. And the Ikshwaku dynasty, the descendants of Ikshwaku actually went up to Burma and they started ruling over there. And they started going. That the Burma was the gateway for the interaction for the Southeast Asia. From Burma, the Thailand, even today, they call themselves descendants of Rama. That's why Ramayana in Thailand. And that's why the travel. And Southeast Asian Indians actually grown up together. They mixed up together. They adopted each other's civilization. There was no invasion, no colonization, nothing. Okay. Even the ancient inscriptions, text, everything is. Actually, Fahian, he complains in his text that entire the Indonesia and this Southeast Asia is Hindu. I can see even South China area also, even Shiva temples are there. So the Hinduism spread means the Indians, actually spread with the civilizational philosophies. That's without even conquering, like entire China became Buddhist. We never conquered China. It's only just philosophers. And the similar way, the interaction with India existed even prior Buddha. Modern historians simply tell us only Indian text and Indian civilization spread to the Southeast Asia when Buddhists gone to that side. That is the wrong concept. Even prior to that also, there is the interaction between civilizational, a kind of a civilizational fusion between Southeast Asia and India happened. That's why this is how Ramayana became so, and even the kings, they use Sanskrit in their inscriptions. Cambodian inscriptions, I have read, even Indonesian inscriptions. Even they follow that Agastya Samhita is available in Indonesia. So this is how the connection between Southeast Asia, India flourished from Treta Yuga to till date. Okay, I have established the chronology of Burma to somewhere 4700 BC, even beyond that. If you can download my books from academia.edu, academia.edu, go there and type my name, you will get my page. I have PDFs I made freely available. Anybody, even in India also, if you want to read PDF, you just download it. If you want a physical book only, then you go to Amazon and then buy it out. That's all.
So if I understood correctly, you said that the planetary software, all those, उसमें जो आपके जो planetary movements होते हैं, they aren't affected that much. I mean, they generally the readings are the same, whereas जो eclipses होती हैं, उनका जो mapping होती है, वो vary कर सकती है because of many reasons. Is
the
this
moon का movement है ना, moon का movement को predict करना, they have gone up to 2000 BC. Beyond that, they will say maybe even 1 minute error also, because NASA is a scientific organization. They can't give you some raw software. So that's why they don't take any responsibility, because they even accept few seconds error, up to few seconds error, they accept up to 2000 BC. That won't make much difference. But beyond 2000 BC, maybe few. But that is okay. For even some 1 minute also, it won't give much difference.
So have these softwares taken into account the change of the axis of Earth's axis every 1000 years? Because the last major change happened.
Everything they have accounted for. Only eclipses, they don't take the responsibility beyond 2000 BCE, because visibility in a particular area. Eclipse may have occurred, because that they will show in the software easily. The conjunction of the sun and moon, okay, that will lead to the when the shadow of the earth and the moon, that is easy to calculate. But in a particular geography or in particular longitude, latitude, you need to have a very accurate data to say that yes, that eclipse was visible on particular longitude and latitude.
So that's one more question. How did the Tamil rishis, what was their calendar like? Did it vary from the Vedic calendar? How did they calculate?
No, there was a few things. Especially in the north, the Yuga chronology was evolving. Where in south, because the Asuras existed during the Rigvedic era, like Raja Bali was there in Kerala. And Asuras continued up to the somewhere Ramayana era, Ravana was there. After Ravana, almost Asura tradition almost vanished. Only Vibhishana continued, or Vibhishana's descendants continued up to Mahabharata era. So during that time, they used to follow 1000 years, counting of the 1000 years, how many years. So they had, irrespective of the calendar, they followed how many years have been elapsed. That account they kept it. Even Parashurama Samvat, even the Kerala, they follow Parashurama Samvat every 1000 year cycle. So presently, they follow some 30 years, 1000 cycle is going on 824 BC, AD onwards. So this 1000 years they calculated. That's why a tradition, a chronological account of the Tamil history, they kept. That's why the not Tolkappiyam, he's actually, his name is Nakkirar. Nakkirar wrote a commentary on Irayana Ragappural. In that commentary, he says that almost Pandyan dynasty has the 10,000 years of history. So he mentions 3 different capitals, because first was the Ten Madurai, old Madurai. that lasted up to 4,400 years, and that city submerged in a sea. Because sea level rose, that city submerged in the southern coast of the Tamil Nadu. Okay. Thereafter, they shifted to capital Kavatapuram, and that time Ramayana occurred. And that Kavatapuram also submerged in a sea during the Mahabharata period. I presume that I have actually even established based on the one Burkle crater in somewhere close to Madagascar. That event led to a huge a tsunami. Due to that massive tsunami, Dwaraka of the Mahabharata era and this Kavatapuram, they both submerged, sudden submergence. Then the Pandyan shifted to modern Madurai. Okay. So this is how they kept the chronological history related to the event. The Sangam period ended with the submergence of the city. This is how 3 Sangam period, and it's a true history. I have corroborated with reference to the astronomical references above, because Rishi Agastya has to be there, whatever the date they are giving. So they are giving the date of Agastya 11,200 BC, and the same Agastya is writing the Vedic Suktas, and at the same time they are saying that the Mrigashiradi list, the Mrigashira as an Agrayana. So that 11,200 BC, when you date astronomically, as well as if you follow the civil chronological event available in Tamil Nadu, both exactly matches. And same Agastya, who is writing Suktas in Vedic Sanskrit, he is also writing Vedic grammar, Tamil grammar. There is Agastya is actually the first person who gave the rules for the Tamil language. Why? Because people, when the Saraswati area, when migrated to south, this Chora, Chela, Pandya, these were the sons of one Chandravanshi Raja. When they established, the people migrated there, they are actually following the natural language at that time existed. This Sanskrit was the language of the learned people. So this was the reason why Agastya and the South Indian trade, after you follow the natural language, but follow the grammar, because grammar gives the longevity for the language. Without a grammar, the language will change every 500 years, 600 years. This is the reason why Tamil language survived even till today, due to that grammar, that is syntax, what I can say, that evolved. So in a natural language evolves first, then the grammar later. But in an artificial language, like a Sanskrit, these languages actually evolve as the grammar. So how Vedic Sanskrit became Lokik Sanskrit, it's not the natural transformation. It is actually grammar when it has advanced. The way Java version 1 and today's version, totally different. Why? Because syntax has evolved much advanced. This was the reason. So it evolves as per the grammar, that is the artificial language. Natural language evolves naturally. So this is the difference. That's why I'm saying Sanskrit language evolution is impossible without inventing a script.